Pod. Pod.
It's just funny because like Dorian and I haven't done an interview together for over 10 years. Like we had a chat on the phone yesterday about this, just because we haven't spoken to each other. We never see each other. He's in Manchester and I'm in Leicester, and we just haven't had a chance. Really, life gets in the way. We haven't had a chance to get together for so long. So we were catching up yesterday, because otherwise it would have been like you interviewing us and me probably interviewing Dorian, going, "How are you? I haven't seen you for ages." So we've got that out of the way at least.
Yeah. You there, Dorian?
Yeah, good. Yeah. Sorry, I'm a bit late. I was just working out how to fucking do it as you do. Yeah, here we go. There we go, chaps. Nice to hear your voice, man. Yeah.
Hi, Dor.
Hi, Kate. How you, love?
You're right. Yeah, not bad.
I'm good. Yeah. I'm all right.
Yeah, I was just saying to Kate, Dorian, I think you're only down the road from me. I'm in Sale. Are you in Stockport?
I'm in Sale. Okay. Yeah. I'm in Stockport. Yeah.
All right, nice one.
Oh, that's mad. Is that where you're originally from?
No, we only moved here about a year ago. Originally from Hull.
Right. Oh, okay.
But yeah, enjoying it.
It's a nice bit. I really like it. I really like Stockport in general, actually. Because I'm obviously not from here. But then what happened was I moved to Manchester, and then actually I met a girl who was in Stockport, which obviously is just a bit further out. So I moved out here. Literally as soon as I moved to Stockport, we split up.
Naturally.
But actually, it's kind of a nice place to. I just spend most of my time in Manchester, but it's kind of nice to be out in Stockport. Really, it's all right.
Yeah, are you originally from Manchester?
From Sheffield, which is where we are.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah, which is where we're all from. Yeah, sort of. Well, where we all met. I'm not actually from. The weird thing is with Long Blondes, even though we're a Sheffield band, none of us are actually from Sheffield. We all just moved there, didn't we? For you. But essentially, we're all from Sheffield for the sake of
Sheffield.
Kate was saying that, and I saw your Instagram post yesterday, that yesterday was the first time you actually spoke with each other in quite a while.
Yeah, it was. Was it? How? Probably about at least a year, probably, Kate, do you reckon?
It's 4 years, Dorian.
Bloody hell.
4, Dorian. It's 4 years.
Wow.
I can't believe it. Last time I saw you.
Last time I saw you was when you were in Landfill, wasn't it?
Yeah, for the solo gig.
That's right. I remember being in the pub with you. Yeah. You know.
Ages ago.
Yeah, in fact, that's weird because I went to that pub with my missus at the weekend and I was like, oh, this is the last time I saw Kate. I can't believe it was that long ago. But that's the weird thing. That's the weird thing. We were just saying, like, when we spoke yesterday, you just immediately click back into being how you are. You know what I mean? Like, like we spent so much time together. Like, Kate is always going to be one of my best mates. You know, that's just what we. Don't maybe you're going to get me all emotional.
It was so nice just yesterday and now, just to hear Dorian's voice again after so long. Even just hearing you talk brings back all the memories of everything that we did together. And
did you say Dorian's voice is plural?
Dorian's voices. Yes, I can hear 2 of you now.
Multiple personalities.
The internet connection. I'm unstable.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I guess you must have a special bond that kind of no one else knows apart from the people that are in the band, kind of thing.
Yeah, I think it's probably like that. Like that for anyone who's in a band. You go through things with them that you're never going to go through with anybody else. It's just such a bizarre experience. It's more intense than being married to somebody. You're living with them,
definitely.
you're working with them,
100%.
all your finances joined together, and you spend 24 hours a day in a tour bus or in hotels or playing shows. But playing shows is such a small part of it. It's the rest of it. Lots of waiting around when you're in a band.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, as I'm sure we all know, the waiting around is mad. It's like when you talk to people, when other people talk to you about it, going, "Oh, it must have been amazing, like rock and roll and all that," and it's like, yeah, there is that, but honestly, it's like people don't understand that. Part of being in a band is, Yeah, but being in a band is just waiting around, really, isn't it? It's waiting for everyone else to turn up.
Yeah. It's that
in
half an hour
smelly
on
room.
stage, and then there's the other 6 hours where you're sat with your mates, everyone's staring at your laptop, and that's it. And you might have a bit of bread and some hummus.
I was going to say a bit of bread and a warm kind of red stripe, and it's like, yeah, this is it.
Yeah, living the dream.
That is, yeah.
Yeah, we've had a few grim stories about being sat by the side of the road waiting for. I think the Cribs were saying their tour manager put the wrong petrol in the van.
Oh my
So
god!
8 hours by the side of the road once and stuff like that. So it's not all glamour kind of thing.
Didn't Spanners do that once, Dorian?
Yeah, I remember. We got. Oh no, there was one. Our friend Matt used to drive us around quite a lot in the early days, and we were driving back from London from a gig one night at like zooming down the M1 at like kind of 4 a.m, so there was not really any traffic, and we sort of took it in turns to sit in the front seat to keep him awake. And I just turned around and looked at him. His eyes were shut whilst he was driving. I was like, fucking hell. Like, so he kind of fallen asleep at the wheel. It's like luckily it was like 4 a.m, so they know with the cars on the road. It's like, man, oh man, just stuff like that. You're like, the weird positions you put yourself in that normal people wouldn't do, would they? You know, like crazy.
We had so many weeknight gigs in London, we'd just vomit down after work and then drive back at 3 a.m. And I was the only one in the band who could drive. If we didn't have anybody else to help, it was me in a hire vehicle.
Yeah.
Like, oh my God.
That's right.
Dropping everyone off.
Yes, if we skip back to the beginning, like, can you just give us an idea of how you went from starting the band to eventually getting a record deal?
Well, this sort of, when we've been asked about this in the past, I feel like it always comes out like it's kind of a bit of a made up story, but it's genuinely true that Rini, who was the bass player, and I was living with her at the time. She came home one day. She's from Wakefield, which actually is weird that Wakefield seems to have a bit of a place in that era indie. So Rini, our bass player, and obviously the Cribs are from there, so it's like Wakefield's quite a weird place of indie. But anyway, she came home one Sunday night, and I think she'd been clearing out of Grandma's house or something like that, and she'd literally found just a cheap 60s bass guitar in the attic, and she came home with it, and she was like, "I've got this," like, and I was like, "Bloody hell!" She was like, "Do you want?" Like, I was making a cup of tea. She goes, "Do you want to start a band?" It's like, "Yeah, let's just do it." And I think we kind of
a really cool A bass.
It looked cool as fuck, but it's probably sounded like absolute dog shit.
Yeah.
But it did look cool, didn't it? And that was kind of more important. And it was just like, well, we were sort of, we were all kind of on nodding terms with each other, you know, and you're just kind of going out and stuff in Sheffield. And in fact, we were talking about this last night, Kate, weren't we? Like, you went up to Screech because he was DJing. Did he play a Kylie song or something like that, an indie night?
Yeah, we all used to do a little bit of DJing. So I used to DJ at the Barfly in Sheffield.
Yeah.
And that's how I met Dorian and Emma, because I was playing with Eager or something, and they came over and said, "Oh God, I can't believe you're playing this. No one plays this." We just got chatting about music and liked a lot of the same bands. Screech was DJing at like the Fuzz Club and various university indie nights. Dorian and Emma had their own night. So we all started kind of going to each other's DJ nights and just hanging out a bit like that and talking about music and going to see bands in Sheffield as well at the time. So I think we were talking about that Ikara Cult gig that we went to with 18 Matchbox. Incredible. And just saying like, oh, come on, they can do this. This is what we can do this as well. Let's start a band.
That's exactly what it was. I mean, so literally we kind of just got together in a pub one day and just had a chat. And I was like, right, I'd bought a guitar for 50 quid from like a Cash Converters the day after Rini had brought this bass guitar on. So I was like, right, this is amazing. I'm going to do it. And I'd never played guitar or anything, never done anything like that. But I was like, right, let's just do it. I reckon we can do it. We'll just have that punk spirit and just, you know, how hard can it be? Let's just do it. So I bought a guitar, basically wrote the idea for about 4 songs just in my attic room, booked as a rehearsal room, And then we just really, really quickly, it was obvious that that kind of extra thing that you need, whatever that, that extra spark when the right sort of people are in a room, like, and just whatever it was with the five of us, immediately it was just like, shit, this obviously works.
Even
and we
had no experience whatsoever of playing. Like, I'd never sung before in a band. I'd sung, like, you know, I'd sung along to records I like, but I'd never sung in front of a microphone. Screech had never played the drums before, even though he lied and told Dorian that he had. Dorian, I don't know if Catherine had ever played the bass before. Rini never played I don't think any of us had. But, you know, we just sort of worked it out.
Yeah, no, I think because
somehow it worked, didn't it?
Well, we were all just into the punk element of it, I think, and it's just like, you know, what's the worst that can happen? I just said to us, like, let's just hire this room. If it sounds bad, then we're the only 5 people who are going to find out if it sounds bad. Like, let's just do it. But it didn't straight away. I just remember being like, God, this is going to work. This is definitely going to work.
Yeah, we had quite a good work ethic right from the start. We were sort of doing 2 or 3 songs every time we practiced, and we started practicing twice a week right from the start. We weren't just doing it like once in a while. And we had a gig booked, I think, straight away in Leeds.
Yeah, we did, yeah.
So we had something to work towards right from our very first practice. So we knew that we had to get it to a certain level where it was kind of acceptable for us to perform it.
That's it.
Even if it wasn't acceptable for anybody else, but it was for us.
Yeah.
And then, like, as soon as we started playing gigs, I think on our second or third show was Marky from the Sheffield Phonographic Corporation, the record label.
That's right.
In Sheffield came up to us and said, "Oh, I love you guys. I want to put out a second single." And we were like, "Really? Okay, great, let's go." You know, being very organically for us, and you know, we knew that we must be onto something.
And it just seemed to, exactly. And I think everything we did, every gig after that,
everything we did
seemed like a step forward, didn't it? Like, I don't remember us ever doing a gig and thinking, even if we thought, that we weren't that good tonight, every gig we did seemed like a step forward. And we just put the effort in. Going down to London.
We were shambolic at times. But people loved it. I think people loved that element of it. Is it gonna fall apart tonight? Or are they gonna make it? Is it gonna be amazing?
That's true. I also think that's weird, though. I also think the weird thing with that is because we made a point of, when we started, we were sort of saying, we're not really musicians, we're a bit shambolic. But in a weird way, that stuck with us for our whole career, if you want to call it that. Because actually we weren't. But like, quite quickly, we got really, really tight, and we were really, really fucking tight, actually.
We did.
And like, if we'd have come out the trap saying we're the best musicians in the world, you know, we should have said that instead. But because we were tagged as shambolic indie, it's like, by the time we were really fucking tight, like, quite quickly, because we just put the effort in, and just, I don't know, I think there was just such a spark there that we thought, this is going to work. So I really personally, I classed it more important than anything else in the world, and I put my heart into writing what I thought were better songs than any of the other songs that were out there. And then we all just got together, and as soon as they became L'Homme Blonde songs, everything we did, we just took it seriously. We went down to London every week to play a gig.
Yeah.
Even though we had to be back at work at like 8 in the morning in Sheffield. It's like, I don't know how we got away with that for so long.
I don't know how we did it.
I can remember turning up to work pretty much every morning, you know, with like eyeliner smudged all over my face on a massive come down. It's like, but that naturally happened. And I think as we were going along, the scene of bands was so good that we just got swept up in it. And with that, pretty soon, record labels were coming to see us. And so, I mean, by the time we actually signed the deal, we had pretty much every record label in the country coming up to Sheffield to take us out for dinner, and all the kind of bullshit side of the industry, if you want. Like, we kind of maybe we're the last band to get all that.
We had a lot of press before we had the record labels.
Right,
so we had this whole thing of being the best unsigned band in Britain for ages, which seemed to go on for a little bit too long. And we started to hate it, because it was like, okay, there's only so long that you can be the best unsigned band in Britain before it becomes a joke. So we really,
Yeah,
you know, it
exactly.
felt like, at the time, it felt like it took a long time for us to sign to Rough Trade, and we went through a lot to get there. But really, looking back at it now, it wasn't that long. You know, it was only 2.5 years from starting to signing, which is nothing. You know, so we must have had something.
Yeah. Were you quite careful about who you signed for then? Did you have like a plan A of signing for Rough Trade, or how did it work?
For me, that was definitely the case personally, because me and Kate were speaking about this last night, because we're basically just kind of classic indie kids, and it's like, right, to me it was important to be on a label that had a history. So it's like, you know, Rough Trade. I mean, for God's sake, they signed the Smith, they signed the Fall, you know.
Yeah.
You know,
All our favourite
obviously
bands
they
were on
signed the
Rough Trade
Strokes,
at the time,
that got me back
Arcade
into music.
Fire
Yeah, it was like, so that to me was a no-brainer. Yeah, Fiery Furnaces, there was loads of good stuff on Rough Trade. And they're always, like, I kind of class them, and still do, as a bit of a gatekeeper of, if something's on Rough Trade, then I'll check it out.
Yeah.
That's how I viewed it, really.
And obviously you had singles out before that, so how did that work? Did you release those on another label?
Yeah, we had
we did a few.
a single with SPC, which was supposed to come out first, but ended up taking a little while, and ended up coming about the same time as we did Giddy Stratospheres with Angular Records. And the whole Angular Records were based in London, and that was brilliant for us, because that really introduced us to a totally different scene, where we started playing with all these very good London bands and meeting loads of cool people, and, you know, playing New Cross all the time, and just felt like we were really, you know, part of something that was quite edgy and quite very happening at that moment in time.
It was a very kind of art school scene, that one, which I think suited more, really. That was the kind of scene that we felt naturally at home in, I think, really.
Definitely. So that was great for us. We did did we do 2 singles with Angular? Or was
I think we did 2 singles with Angular.
Yeah, Creation and Giddy Stratospheres with Angular. Then we did Separated by Motorways on 679, and that's
right, yeah.
Almost turned into an album deal, but didn't quite happen. And then we were relieved that it didn't happen, because then we got Rough Trade and signed.
And you obviously worked with some big producers, and Paul Epworth, was he the producer for Separated by Motorways?
That's right. It's really weird now. Now I think about that. I mean, Paul was absolutely ace, but it's mad that now, obviously, he was doing Adele and stuff like that. It's like, which is kind of crazy, because obviously we just got on with him. Like, he was just a really good laugh. I remember him coming up to Sheffield to record us, and basically he was most obsessed with, he wanted to be taken to like a proper old man's pub. So after we recorded,
we were worried about it, because we didn't have much time in the studio, and then as soon as he got there, he was like, "Oh, can we go to the pub?"
Which was kind of our answer for everything. It's like, oh, let's just fucking go to the pub for now, we'll sort it out later. But no, that was, so I remember me and Screech taking him to quite a rough pub, which was kind of near Sheffield United's ground. It was a bit of a hooligan pub, really, which I think he kind of liked the edge of that. But he was good. He was good. Like, I mean, every producer we worked with I think, brought something out of us that's what producers are supposed to do, really. You know, it's like he was great with Paul, like, and I'm really glad he's gone on to do what he's done. Definitely.
Yeah, and he obviously mentioned you were tipped as the best unsigned band in the country, and you're given awards like the NME Philip Hall Radar Award, which has tipped a lot of big bands.
Yeah, Radar Award. Yeah.
It's obviously, like you say, great at the time, but you kind of wanted to make sure it kind of counted for something.
Well, that's it, because like Kate says, there's only so long you can be the greatest unsigned band, because if that goes on for too long, then obviously the question is, well, why are they still unsigned if they're that good? So, but no, I mean, in the end, we were kind of lucky. We were the last, I think we were probably one of the last bands we had loads of deals on the table, and it kind of meant that we could take advantage of the last bit of the industry having that thing where they were coming up and, you know, throwing money at us and taking us out for dinner and stuff like that. And I can remember every label coming up, and we'd take one look at the guy walking through the door and go, no. But on the other hand, fuck it, he's up here. We might as well make use of his company credit card. So we went to like every expensive restaurant in Sheffield and ordered more drinks than we could drink, which is quite a lot of drinks. it was it was it was a good laugh.
I think now it would be really difficult now for a band of 5 people to get signed and have enough money on that record deal to quit their jobs. I think
So, yeah.
The last of that era, one of the last bands of that era for that to happen. Then you had to be a band of 3 or a band of 2 for that to happen. But 5 people, difficult.
Yeah,
and it was impossible really for us to carry on, you know, working full time and doing the Non Blondes pretty much full time as well, because that's what we were doing.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah.
How old are you at this point? Sorry, were you still at university, or had you moved on, kind of thing?
No, we'd left university. I think all of us had just about left.
Right.
Was Screech still at uni?
I think Screech had left. Yeah.
Screech was the baby. He was the last one to leave uni. He was young.
Okay.
But I think am I the oldest? No, Emma's the oldest. Emma and I had left about 2 years, 3 years prior, and Emma had a good job in Leeds.
We're all kind of mid, sort of early 20s-ish, I think,
20s.
around that kind of region, really.
And obviously been watching some interviews you did around that time, and it sounds like, in terms of the first album, Dorian, like you wrote most of it, and then when it came to the second album, it was a bit more collaborative. Is that how it worked?
Yeah, I mean, I guess the way it worked, I want to be careful talking about this because I don't want to take too much away from anyone else in the band. But basically, what happened, particularly with the first record, I kind of sat in my bedroom and wrote all the songs essentially, but then took them. Kate wrote the lyrics for a couple of the tracks, I think, on the first album. I've got it here. Let me just have a look.
Separated and Madam Ray, I did.
That's right. You did. Yeah, that's right. But I mean, that stemmed from me essentially writing the songs in my bedroom and then taking them to the band in rehearsal, and then we'd kind of transform, somewhere from what I'd written. To be honest, it was a similar process for the second one. Really, it was just more. I was a lot more confident. I think we were a lot more confident in our abilities at that point. So I knew that I didn't have to necessarily write a full arrangement. We sort of went into rehearsal and I'd say, right, well, the chord structure needs to go like this, and then we could sort of come up with it from there. So it was, I think that both records, both albums were very collaborative. Just, by the second one, we'd slightly changed the way we were writing, I think, really.
A lot of it was worked out in the practice room. So Dorian would come with the music written pretty much.
Yeah.
The bare bones of it was there. And the lyrics, give me the lyrics, and then I'd work out the top line melody to fit with the music that he'd written. Screech would alter the drum part to whatever he wanted, not whatever he wanted to play, but what he could play. Do you know what I mean? Screech will be the first to admit that he was not John Bonham. So Screech had his own way of playing the drums, which was unique to him. So he would come up.
Screech was the tightest drummer around that time. If you needed a disco beat, you went to Screech. That's the thing.
Oh yeah, Screech, king of the disco beat. The hi-hats. He was all over the hi-hats.
he had 2 drum beats, but he could play both of them
very well.
I think that was a bonus. Really, it was like when we were in rehearsal, Screech and Rini, the bassist, they were just tight as fuck. Like, could straight away Rini never put a note wrong. It was like, this is great. And it meant that it gave me and Emma more freedom, and Kate as well, I think. I can remember, Kate, you stood there kind of working out top lines while we were kind of getting it right a bit. And then me and Emma, it meant we had a bit more chance to sort of muck about with the guitar bits or the synth bits, because the bass and drums straight away just clicked like that, like every single time.
You obviously said that you hadn't picked up a guitar before you started the band. So how long did you go from picking up a guitar to playing your first gig, kind of thing?
What did we say last night, Kate? We had our first gig.
3 months, I think. Yeah, wow. We had our first practice in January, and we played our first gig in April 2003.
Okay. Right. Wow. Yeah. So
that's mad.
So we did just have to get on with it. But it was, the thing is that I was so inspired at that time. Like, I thought going out was brilliant. Like, bands were really good, and it just inspired. I wanted to be part of it. So I was like, right, if I'm into something, like, I will be into it 100%, and I would throw everything at it, and that's exactly what I did. Like, I was just so confident.
We all spurred each other on as well, because
definitely.
Nobody wanted to let anybody else down in the band, so we all wanted to be as good as each other, and that sort of competitive spirit. It wasn't really competitive at all because we all got on, but it was just more like we didn't want to let us down. We wanted to prove that we could do it.
Definitely.
And one thing we do ask bands is whether they felt part of a unique scene back in the day, where they had like a camaraderie with other bands, or were we just more focused on what you were doing?
Well, we said yes, didn't we, Kate? I think we were all
a band of one.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's loads of bands that I loved around that time, and I felt really inspired, especially at the start of that whole scene. Bands were really individual. I think a bit later it became a bit more, oh, there's this kind of band or this kind of band. But especially when we were going to London a lot, it was like all the bands were just totally different from each other. But everyone just sort of did their thing.
They had maybe an art rock element to them all, and that's probably the angular thing. But in Sheffield, everybody talks, or people talk about New Yorkshire and ask about a New Yorkshire scene because of that NME article. But for me, I don't think that was a real thing. I think that's something that was a construct. No. It was made up really for the paper. But Sheffield had some great bands around that time that people don't talk about now, like Pink Grease. I don't think the Long Blondes would have existed if it hadn't been for Pink Grease. They were so cool.
No,
and they played. There was a club night in Leeds called Pigs, which was started by a couple of members of the Kaiser Chiefs. And I think about 2 months before we played, we went to see Pink Grease play there, and we just started the Long Blondes at that point, and we were like, wow, it was like watching Roxy Music. I thought they were so good.
Yeah, incredible.
And so innovative. Nick made his own instruments, and they just all looked great. They had that like glamour to them that you just didn't really see that often. You go to the Barfly and see 5 blokes wearing leather jackets and Converse and playing electric guitars and had kind of long hair, and it was like, okay, I've seen this a million times. I want to see something else. And all our favourite bands were quite glamorous anyway. So bands like from that art rock tradition, like Roxy Music and Bowie and Blondie. Why couldn't we watch that? Why couldn't bands be a bit more like that? And then Pink Grease happened, and they were. Mm-hmm. So I think if there was a scene that was like inspiring us, it was definitely coming from Pink Grease. And I think I'd put 80s Matchbox in that bracket as well. And there's a few other people in Sheffield who weren't necessarily guitar bands who were like Haim. They were quite glam when they played a show. It was a real event.
Yeah, definitely.
The Lovers.
The Lovers, Kings Have Long Arms.
Yeah,
there was loads of good stuff.
Yeah,
that's it. Yeah, I think the Sheffield we like was a bit more synth orientated, but the Sheffield that became the big Sheffield, obviously because of the Arctic Monkeys, was kind of the Arctic Monkeys style bands. And to be honest with you, the Arctic Monkeys were the only good ones out of that set of bands, if I'm being quite honest. But I'm not going to sit and slag bands off. But far be it for me to do that.
You'd never do that, Dorian, would you?
I would not. I would never
known you to do that.
I haven't spent most of my life doing that. So,
I remember accidentally watching Pink Grease. Me and my mate were just walking around Leeds and went to they called the Merrion Centre.
Merrion Centre, yeah.
And we're in there for 5 minutes, and this band just started playing in the middle, and they were Pink Grease. He was there.
In the Merrion Centre, that's incredible. That's so good. That's brilliant. Yeah, they were some of the first when they were playing in Sheffield. That was like, whoa, you can be glamorous and like the guy who had a synth. He made his own synths and stuff. It's like, this is incredible. Like. Yeah. And it was just noisy, and it had, more importantly for me, it had sex to it. Like, I really think that was one of the things really that the Strokes brought back. It was like, right, guitar music is sexy again, and I think it had really lost that obviously after Britpop and stuff. And I just wanted a big fat slice of that. Really, that was great.
And a bit of eccentricity and humour as well, which seemed to be lacking. Everybody was taking themselves so seriously, and we weren't like that. We had this
No.
kind of British eccentricity to us as well, which was lacking, and I think is lacking a bit again now, to be honest. But that's another thing.
Yeah.
And obviously, you had the mission statement on your website saying we do not listen to the Beatles, Rolling Stones, Jimi Hendrix, and stuff. Was that kind of the place you were coming from? Is like, yeah, you want it to be a bit different. You didn't want to fit in with the other bands, kind of thing.
Yeah, well, exactly. I mean, that was us. I mean, in all honesty, I did that because I knew that would grab attention, and it did immediately. People were like, "What? You can't say that?" And it's like, well, I mean, I personally don't listen to any of them bands, but I know other members of the band, you know, maybe do like some of those bands, but that's their problem, not mine. No, it was more. That's more kind of going off what
Hendrix.
Actually, that Hendrix is the only one I'm going to reclaim. I've been listening to him recently, which is a bit of, I can't believe I'm letting the world know that via this podcast. You know, but no, that was really more, and it goes back to what Kate just said, like, because our kind of icons were more kind of like Bowie and Blondie and Roxy Music and that kind of art rock tradition. We just didn't, you know, like all those bands, like, you know, the Beatles and the Stones and blah blah blah. It just seemed like it was just what Mojo Reader bands, and that just didn't interest me at all, really.
Did we put the Doors on our list? They should have totally been on there.
Yeah, they were, I think, yeah.
Good. I'm glad.
The Doors, yeah, the Doors. I'm going to go on record. The Doors are the worst band that have ever existed. I fucking hate the Doors.
I would replace Jimi Hendrix with Bob Dylan.
Yeah, Bob Dylan was on there as well. Sorry, I missed those two.
As well.
On there. Oh, good.
I thought I'd give him a break, but fair enough. Yeah, and just going back to your songwriting style, Dorian, and just the interview I was watching again today.
Right.
I think it was a Dutch interview or a Belgian interview. And Kate was saying how you were able to get into the mindset of a woman and how you found that more interesting than writing.
Why?
Yeah, I mean, maybe I could. I think the thing about that is, you know, I was in a band with 3 girls who were 3 of my best friends, and I've tended to. I mean, I don't know. I've always had friends who are girls, like, which may sound stupid because obviously why wouldn't you? But I mean, I do know a load of blokes who don't have any friends who are girls, and it's like, well, so I don't know. It didn't seem unusual to me, but that was kind of part of the songwriting thing that people started seeming to pick up on, and I was like, well, okay, I might as well, you know, play up to that. Like, yeah, I don't know really. I mean, I just wrote what I wrote, and I guess it came from a girl's point of view because obviously Kate was singing it. So
you created this character who's almost like a sort of sexy big sister, ice queen figure for a lot of younger indie girls, and I inhabited those lyrics and became that character that you wrote when I was on stage, definitely, which was good for me as well because it meant I didn't have to be me. I wasn't singing about things that had happened to me particularly. I was just playing a part.
Yeah, and you do have that theme of like movie characters and film characters within your music. Did that kind of fit into that?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. I wanted the whole thing to feel quite cinematic, I think.
Well, that's
something that we definitely carried on in the second album.
Yeah. I mean, it comes across in a lot of our interviews and things that we said at the time, like kind of films influenced us as much as music, really. We liked, you know, the kind of glamour of vintage Hollywood and things like that. And it's like, well, I want to incorporate some of that into music, maybe in a way that wasn't totally obvious, but, you know, even if it wasn't something that other people would pick up on, I knew that's where my writing was coming from.
Yeah, there were a lot of references in the lyrics to films and TV, you know, and I don't know if everybody would have picked up on them, but I know that Dorian wrote them in. So, and I did some of my lyrics as well.
Some of the things
we'd reference all sorts of things from Hitchcock to the Carry On film.
That's right, yeah. And some of the things that we kind of referenced, that's it, yeah, we'd go from Alfred Hitchcock to Carry On films, that's a great example. And even within the other things mentioned in the lyrics, like something that I kind of felt really proud about in a weird way was when Scott Walker died, I had a couple of people who'd come up to me and said that they'd only heard about Scott Walker because I'd written in one of the songs about listening to him on headphones when I was on the bus, which is what I did. And so they'd got into Scott Walker through that, which kind of meant a lot to me because the bands that me and Kate liked, like the bands that me and Kate liked, we would have picked up on things that they'd mentioned in lyrics. So obviously, you know, as an obvious example, you listen to something like the Smiths and it gets you into a different world of whatever Morris's references were. Like, that was important to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Me too. And Pulp, you know, Pulp did that, I think, quite a lot with their lyrics. And Pulp was the whole reason I ended up moving to Sheffield in the first place, and partly responsible for me ending up being in a band. So to try and sort of emulate those bands, the Smiths, Pulp, The Fall, was very important to me at the time anyway. To have that kind of impact on somebody else listening in their bedroom as a teenager, or listening on headphones on the bus, or listening on the train or in their car, you know, and having that be an important part of their world, or creating a fantasy world and an escape for somebody else, is really important. Music becomes part of your identity that way.
Yeah,
it meant ever such a lot to me to do that.
And obviously with the Pulp connection, you had Steve Mackey produce the first album. Was that quite important in terms of, you know, a Sheffield band that had been there and done it kind of thing?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it was. It really was. I mean, it was kind of weird. It was like, again, me and Kate, we talked about this last night. It's like stuff that we did that at the time we took for granted. I now think is kind of mad. I mean, I'm kind of friends with Steve now, but then at the time you're like, hang on, actually, this is mad. We're meeting the bass player from our collective favourite band in the pub, and then we're going to go to the rehearsal room with him. He's going to watch us play our songs. It's like, that's pretty mad, really. And then we're going to go to London. Our record company is going to pay for us to move to London to go and record with the bass player from Pulp in the Kinks studio. So it's like, that's pretty crazy, really.
Yeah. I guess that's a thing that a few bands have said, is like, you kind of, you don't really appreciate what's going on at the time, kind of thing. And looking back, that's what you kind of appreciate more.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, absolutely. As I say, I think it just shows how fast everything was moving, and how much was happening from week to week. We didn't really have enough time to sit there and go, oh my God, this is amazing. You know, we were just so busy.
There'd just be
stuff.
One crazy thing after another. Absolutely. Do you remember, Dorian? Do you remember playing that crazy festival in Mexico that we were then not allowed to talk about, and then coming back, getting picked up, and then we were straight on the NME radar award because we just got signed to Rough Trade, and then it was straight into festivals, summer 2006 festivals, playing Reading and Leeds, all over the place, travelling all over the place. We played in British the Biennale in Venice, the Architecture Biennale. That was mad. You know, all these little things that we were doing every single weekend would now be kind of like the event of the year if you were doing it now. It was mad and great.
Just wanted to move back onto the gender kind of things, because I saw when you were included in the coolest, Kate, I think you're number 7.
Yeah.
There's a quote from you saying it's probably because they didn't have enough girls. It was so overrun with boring boys. Is that something you felt at the time?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, there were a few really cool, fierce women in music at that point in time, like Beth from The Gossip and Love Fox from CSS, Peaches, obviously, loads of it, like more coming from America. And I just felt a bit like, well, all the bands that we were watching before the Long Blonde started seemed to be these kind of boring boys who wanted to be like the Libertines or be like a bit like the Strokes, but couldn't write the songs and didn't seem that very interesting. And all the bands that I'd loved growing up had women in, you know, either as front women or playing the instruments. You know, a lot of the punk bands I liked had women in. A lot of the new wave bands I liked had women, and I just didn't even think like that would be something that was unusual, or should be something that was unusual. I thought that it should be totally normalised to have women in bands. I mean, come on, it was 2003 for God's sake. Why not? So yeah, I just still felt like indie in particular was overrun with boys, and probably still is. There you go.
And for that reason, do you think you became quite important to like a young female audience at that time? Did you have a lot of big female following?
Yeah, absolutely. I remember looking out and seeing a sea of berets at some of our gigs. But no, I mean, hopefully I inspired a bit more than some sort of fashion emulation. Hopefully the aim was that other women would be inspired by us, by me, by Renee, by Emma. Especially Renee and Emma, because they were playing instruments and I was a front woman. But you know, especially to play an instrument, to pick up an instrument and say to your friends, let's just start a band. They can do it, why can't we do it like we did?
Yeah. And how, I mean, I don't know if it's a bit of an outdated question, but how did you find the reaction of other bands and other, you know, corporate people around that time? Did you ever feel like you were treated any differently for any reason?
Not by other bands particularly. I think a lot of the bands that we played with had quite a kind of diverse mix. So we knew a lot of bands with women in as well. And a lot of the bands that we were playing with were very alternative and art rock based. But it was when it came to getting signed that I think we came up against the gender problem, the sexism, because a lot, you know, I heard things like, "Well, we've already signed a girl band this year. You know, we don't need another one on our label."
Right.
You know, stuff like that, which is utterly ridiculous, of course. But I think that old attitude, especially amongst major labels of women don't sell records, was still very much prevalent at the time. Hopefully, it's not now. What do you think?
I mean, I think that it still exists in the way that. I mean, sadly, I think it's always going to exist. I mean, the weird thing is, for example, in Manchester, off the top of my head, I can name like at least 5 amazing bands who are all girls. Like it's one of the really good things about Manchester that girls are in bands, and it's not like, oh, we've got to be girls, they're just getting on with it.
Yeah,
but,
exactly.
One of my friends the other day said to me, she said, "Oh, like we turned up to the sound check, and then the engineer was like, when's the band turning up?" Like, no, we are the band. Right?
Yes, that as well. And we need to get that. We'd turn up with, the band would turn up, the Long Blondes would turn up, and the sound engineer or the crew guys, the in-house crew guys would say, "Oh, no girlfriends backstage, love." You know, stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's just
they'd only ever talk to me. They'd only ever talk to me. They don't talk to anyone else. Right?
Oh yeah, they'd only ever talk to you. That's true. Yeah, even when we were doing festivals, they'd only talk to Dorian and Screech, not us.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, that's mad, isn't it?
Rubbish.
Just looking ahead to the second album. Kate, I saw you describe the first album as very of its time, whereas the second album you kind of let things progress, and obviously had Errol Alkan, who's like a massive DJ who produced it. So yeah, how did things change from that first album going into the second?
Well, I mean, I knew Errol from going to Trash. That was his club. That was one of the most amazing clubs that has ever existed, and anyone who used to go will know just how good that was. That was like a proper melting pot of just stuff. So actually, I was really inspired by going to that, because he'd be playing, you know, he might play like a Suede song next to some really obscure techno track that's just come out that I didn't know, and it was this mad mix of, it wasn't just confined to one genre of music. So my taste was changing a bit by then anyway. Me and Kate were listening to a lot more. I remember us listening to a lot more 70s disco, and I kind of wanted to make tracks that had a bit more of that to them, almost like a bit more splintered instead of just jangly indie. I don't know. it's strange when I look back and think that now. I think people make the mistake of thinking we went out on a limb and made a weird second album, whereas it was just for us a really natural. We were doing what we always did, which was just be us. Like, we didn't really care what else was going on. And it kind of sounds a bit of a cliche saying that, I know, but that is the truth. I think we were just getting into a wider range of music. I was being exposed to, I'd moved to London by that point. I was just going out every single night, and every night I was going out, a DJ was playing loads of different music. It was a really exciting melting pot. And that all just fed into the music, really.
We wanted to make it, again, even more cinematic musically than the first album. The first album was very cinematic lyrically, I think. Kitchen sink dramas. And the second album, like a track like Century, wouldn't have belonged on the first record. It was such a step forward, I think, for us. Actually, I think that the B-sides we did with Errol, when we did Forward Babylon and 5 Ways to End It, we did these brilliant, he produced those as well. So that's what led to him producing the second album. I think they really bridged the gap between the first record and the second record, and they were really important for us, making those 2 tracks. And then, you know, in terms of the sound, and then making a track like Century, which I wrote the lyrics for. For me, I wanted to kind of make the lyrics more arty, I suppose. So instead of a descriptive narrative, I was almost just taking words and trying to sum up a century, trying to sum up an architectural century with song lyrics. And you know, again, that was something that I wouldn't have done for the first record. It wouldn't have belonged on the first record. I think that's what.
Well, I think with those lyrics, when you were doing them, Kate, I think you were doing it in the same way that, like, Bowie used kind of cut technique.
Yeah, exactly.
Which was obviously something we'd not done before. So that's what made that a real departure, I think.
Oh, that's cool. What, you use that technique for lyrics?
No, I wrote lyrics for Century on a train, but it wasn't cut up, but it was sort of fragmented, I suppose. I wasn't writing prose anymore. I wasn't trying to write rhyming couplets anymore. I was more writing prose. And then editing it down to the essence of what I was trying to say, which was just sort of words, really.
Yeah. And obviously looking at some of the, you had some big songs in that scene on the first album. And I've heard people like the Cribs talk about their big songs and they become a bit fed up with them when it comes to playing live. Was that anything like that for you, or not really?
I don't think so. I think we just kind of adapted some of them to.
We did stop playing Once and Never Again, though, didn't we?
Oh yeah, we did. Yeah, we did for a bit. Yeah.
People were really annoyed about that.
Yeah, I mean, no, I if it was a song that got a good reaction, then I was willing to play it. I mean, I'm proud of every song we did. So I didn't think, oh no, like, I'm fed up of playing this. Thousands of people like it. Like, that's proper kind of first world problems, isn't it? Really? Like.
But why did you stop playing Once and Never Again then? Just because you had other songs you wanted to fit in?
Yeah, I think we kind of figured out how to play it as well. It just wasn't sounding that good when we were in practice, and other songs were sounding better. So we dropped it, and everyone was like, "You're stupid. Why are you dropping? What's your second biggest hit or your biggest hit? You can't do that." But that was the kind of band we were. We were like, "Oh, we don't care. Of course we can. We can do what we want."
We weren't. You're probably picking up that we weren't exactly business minded.
No, we were very bad at that.
Let's drop one of our best songs from our set. Yeah, definitely do that. Right.
So you said you felt less pressure going into the second album than you did with the first. Is that right?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that's because the weird thing is we were in a weird position where the songs off our first album had already almost become, I don't want to say indie classics, but there were, people were already dancing around indie discos to stuff like Giddy Stratus Phase and Once and Never Again. So it was a bit like, right, everyone already knows what we're doing with our first record, which was a good position to be in because we knew that, we had the songs and all the rest of it. But then it's like, by the second album, it's like, oh, great, we're kind of almost hitting the reset button a little bit. And that, personally, that felt a bit more, right, we've got less pressure now to... What I mean is there was a lot of expectation on our first record. And I think whatever we delivered was never, unless it got to number one, it was never going to achieve what it was meant to, really. So, yeah, it was good to start from scratch again a bit, really.
Yeah, I mean, I think NME gave the first album a 9 out of 10. So, I know what you mean by, where do you go from there kind of thing.
Well, that's it. I mean, but that's the thing. I mean, I guess with that, like, because we'd been so hyped up and, and NME had given all them songs single of the week already, basically. So it was like, in a weird way, we knew that was going to happen. Like, there was no way they couldn't give it at least 9 out of 10, really, because they'd already banged on about it almost like for the whole year before it had come out. So it was like, okay, well, we finally got rid of that now, and I'm really proud of it. But now we can continue moving on and do something else.
We got a single of the week, didn't we, for a single that we didn't release as a single. It was lost in the movie. It was just a bit like, I don't remember that being a single. And there it was, single of the week in the NME. Maybe they got a demo from somewhere. Weird. Yeah, but they really loved us. They almost over-loved us. So, it might have been a little bit of an anticlimax after the first album came out, because where do you go from there when you're getting 9s and 10s everywhere? Where do you go? Yeah. And I think Errol was super important for that second record, setting the tone of it, and for inspiring us, because he had such an eclectic record collection and music taste. He was playing all sorts of things in the studio when we were making that record, records that I hadn't heard before, that then went on to, I suppose, influence the sound of it. And he's just a really great guy. He's really chilled out. He's really nice. There's no stress to making it. He was just really cool to work with. So that was very important, I think, with the second record, and took the pressure off.
Well, he just kind of inspires you in a way that, like, I kind of really needed it at the time. It was almost like, when a teenager's really excited about something, like he'd ring me up at like 5 a.m, but I've got this idea for what you should do on this track. And I'd be like hungover, I'd be like, Errol, can we speak about it in a bit? It's like, it's 5 a.m, I'm trying to sleep for the first time this week.
Yeah, I saw you saying about he was playing, you had some kind of playlist where it was like the top 30 worst songs of all time or something that you kept listening to in the studio or something. Is that right?
Yeah. Oh, the bottom 30. Oh,
that's the one, yeah.
I wish I could remember more of that. I think it was like Kenny Everett or one of them kind of old school comedians. It was some weird radio show that he'd done years ago where it's like, oh, these are the 30 worst records of all time. And it was the sort of thing, you go around to Errol's and he's just playing it at you. And I don't know, like with Errol, I absolutely love him. And you've got to go with the flow of whatever he's ranting on about. You kind of just go with it.
Okay, I was just saying, you mentioned that you were quite close with the Cribs back in the day.
I think being up on the bill with them at festivals and the like, they were always really friendly and chatty with us, which was nice,
Well, I think the other thing as well is just that we came from the same world. Like, they were very much an old school indie band in the same way that we were. They weren't interested in kind of the corporate side of it and all the rest of it. They wanted to do things their way, and they did. And then we wanted to do things our way, and we did. And I love those guys. They're one of the best bands of the era, without any doubt.
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, one of the running themes of this podcast, well, there's two running themes really. Is one of them's how nice the Cribs are, and the other one's how good 80s Matchbox were. And I didn't know much about them before the podcast.
I'm talking about underrated bands, 80s Matchbox.
I agree on both of those things, yeah.
Yeah, am I right in saying the second album you decided to write on keyboard instead of guitars? Is that right?
Yeah, but a bit of both really. Again, that was just through my tastes were changing a bit. I was getting really, really into 70s disco, like the production side of it, really. Which kind of seems, people are saying, well, that doesn't make sense to me, but I mean, proper disco is what is amazing. I mean, all the lyrics are really heartbreaking, but it's like the sort of music I like, and I think that we all liked, was music that had really heartbreaking lyrics that you could dance to.
Yeah, ABBA.
Exactly.
ABBA was a massive influence on the Blonde Blondes. Not many people know that.
Exactly. Every song was really heartbreaking. So I was writing a lot more on keys. And part of that as well is because Emma was getting better on guitar. So I wanted her to utilise that side of it really a bit more. Because as I say, I was getting into using samplers a bit more and keys, and that was really a reflection of working with Errol a bit more as well, and just hanging out with him, because he was introducing me to a lot of music that I would never have otherwise heard, and my brain was just firing with. Well, I was just kind of fizzing with ideas, really. So, I mean, yeah, I can remember those days writing that second record, and it was like, it takes a lot for me to get up at 7 a.m, but I was getting up at 7 a.m and just getting straight on the keyboards, on the guitar. I was so inspired. I was so inspired.
I was going to say, was it a similar thing with the first album, Dorian, where you were new to guitar? Were you quite new to keyboard when it came to the second album?
That's exactly what it was. That's exactly how I like writing the first album. I was very much learning guitar as I went. So I think that's what gave the songwriting a certain freshness to it, because I didn't have any preconceived idea of, oh, you're supposed to play that chord after that chord or whatever.
Okay, then looking at, like, you mentioned playing big festivals around that time. I mean, in terms of high points, is there any really standout high points from that early period?
Leeds was important because that was like the first festival I ever went to. And so, to be on that bill was like, wow, that's really good.
Did we do Reading and Leeds 4 years in a row? I think we did. I think we did 2005, 2006, 2007, or we would have done 2008. I mean, maybe we did 3 years in a row.
I think we did it 3 years, yeah. I think so.
But we went from like playing tiny level to were we on the main stage in 2007, just before the Gossip, which was just insane. That was my festival highlight probably of the whole time we were doing it. Just seeing that big crowd. But we also played some amazing European festivals as well. Obviously the UK ones kind of, it means more because you've been to them as, been as a punter. You've been going since you were a teenager. But some of those Spanish festivals that we did were just incredible as well. We were on the same stage as Patti Smith, wow. I was completely enough.
Yeah. I think that's
the same backstage bit as us.
That's right. I think that's got to rank as a highlight. Like we were playing, so we got to a European one, and our dressing room was between Sonic Youth and Patti Smith. We were like, wow, okay. And then there was a knock.
She came
on the dressing room door.
She was so lovely, wasn't she?
Yeah. So I opened the door, and Patti Smith is stood there, and I'm like, oh. And I was just like, she kind of came in. I was like, obviously don't know what to say. It's Patti Smith. It's like,
she had her Polaroid camera. She came in. She had her Polaroid camera, which she takes with her everywhere, and she took a photo of me, and she gave me an oat cake, a homemade oat cake. It was just that's probably the highlight of my life, to be honest. She was just so nice. Just what a wonderful woman. Wow, blown away. Yeah. That was in Barcelona.
Oh yeah, was that Benicassim? I remember there was an old festival called Summer Case as well, wasn't there?
I think it was Summer Case. Yeah, I was just going to say Summer Case.
I think it was at Summer Case.
We never played Benicassim.
Yeah, I think it was at Summer Case actually.
We did Primavera. Did we do Primavera?
We did Primavera. We did Summer Case. Yeah. And we did.
But that was Summer Case.
Yeah, it was definitely so. Yeah, it was at Summer Case. That rings a bell. Yeah.
Yeah, remember I followed the Paddingtons there one year. Well, I was actually on like a lad's holiday in Lorette de Mar, and found out the Paddingtons were playing at Summer Case, which is about an hour on the train.
Right.
So me and my mate just went down there, and then ended up going back to Lorette
de Mar. Probably the same year.
Yeah, was it 2005? That was, I think.
Right, I think we were 2006.
Was it 2006? And it was 2006. Yeah, you're right. I think.
No,
Yeah, that's right.
you.
Because I think Andy Warhols are playing the same day. Remember that?
Oh.
Okay.
But yeah, anyway. See, obviously, Dorian got a touch on what happened in 2008 in terms of your stroke. Can you tell us a bit about that and obviously the effects that
had? Well, I mean, the immediate effect was not to put too much of a downer on it, but the immediate effect was I had to learn how to walk and talk again, which is pretty fucking mad, really, when I think about it. I'm pretty much all right now, for the record. But obviously that kind of put a stop to the band because, I was unable to play guitar and stuff like that. But in a way, the kind of band that we were, like, I personally don't think bands should go on forever anyway. I think a band only really needs 2 albums. I mean, to me, it's like Joy Division, New York Dolls, etc. Do your 2 albums and then get the hell out of there. So in a kind of weird way, it gave us a bit of an out. It's like, right, we don't need to carry on now. Which obviously at the time was pretty heartbreaking, but life, these things happen. And I mean, the only thing I can say about that is, in the most cliched way you can say it, live for today, because you never know what's going to happen the next day.
Yeah, and obviously it was completely out of the blue, having a stroke, obviously.
Yeah, it's exactly totally out of the blue. And it's totally out of the blue.
America. It happened 2 days after we returned from our American tour.
That's right. Yeah.
In the States.
Totally out of the blue, just one of them things.
Yeah.
But luckily, we as a band got on with everything and did everything. So I don't feel like there was any missed opportunities. The only thing that we did miss, which would have been brilliant, was a few days after it happened, we were supposed to be supporting Duran Duran at Wembley, which would have been pretty crazy to have started a band in a windowless room that stank of shit in Sheffield to like then ending up supporting Duran Duran at Wembley. It's like that's the dream right there. When I was in hospital, Duran Duran sent me like a big bouquet of flowers, which all the nurses were then going, "Oh my God, is that who we think it is?" It's like going to my mum, is that who we think it is? And she was like, yeah, Duran Duran. And so they moved me. I got my own private room on the NHS, because then all the nurses and the next day all the nurses had sort of put a bit more makeup on and stuff, because my mum was going, I think they're probably going to come in and see him.
I know the point you're making there about stopping while the going's good, because I think even Noel Gallagher said in hindsight they should have probably stopped after Nebworth. It's weird. Yeah, because I was watching Supersonic the other night, and he said that, and I agree with that. Like, I mean, I think because the thing is, really, is if you're at the top, the only way you know you're at the top is when you start sliding down. Once you've reached a certain level, where can you go from? That's the thing. Yeah, that's the point Preston made as well. He said a lot of being in a band is managing the decline, and I guess you guys never had that period. So
true.
Well, that's it. I just didn't want to. I didn't want to become a band that was irrelevant, and so I think, we avoided that. We went out when we were still on the top of our game. So, that's good. That's good in my opinion.
The most exciting time when you're in a band, and this is what people don't tell you, is the best bit is the beginning, when you're starting out and you're learning how to play and you're learning how to create songs with your mates, and everything is new and it's full of possibility. That's it. That's what it's all about. Making it or not making it is irrelevant, really.
Yeah. And obviously, Kate, like you were saying earlier, didn't waste much time in terms of making new music, and you started working with Bernard Butler quite quickly. Is that right?
Yeah, once we knew that the Long Blondes was going to be over and wasn't going to carry on, I spoke to Jeff and Jeanette at Rough Trade, and they wanted me to make a record. So they asked me who I'd like to work with, and Suede had been my favourite band as a teenager. Bernard was my favourite guitarist. I love the sound that he makes more than any other guitarist. So I said, can I work with Bernard? And they were a bit like, didn't put you two together kind of thing. What about this? What about that? And I was a bit like, no, I really want to work with Bernard. Please ask him. So they gave me his email address and I sent him an email. And to my amazement, he said, yeah, okay, come and try something out. I'm working at Edwin Collins' studio in West Hampstead. So and he said, bring a track with you. That's right. Bring a song with you that you've written, and we'll take it from there. So I had never written a song on my own before, because Dorian's obviously the songwriter in the Long Blondes. Dorian writes the music, and I could barely play guitar. I knew a few chords, but I could write lyrics. So I thought I'll give it a go. I tried to sort of teach myself a bit more how to write a song, and I wrote a very, very simple song called Lie to Me, which actually ended up being on my solo album. And I took it to Bernard, all intimidated, and played it to him. I can't believe I even had the nerve, God. But he didn't chuck me out, and he said, okay, well, let's see what we can do with it. And he made it into this pop song and put a string arrangement on it. And it's just, to this day blows my mind that he's that talented that he could turn my silly little song into something that was so kind of pop and uplifting as the song that's ended up on my solo record. And then we wrote, so that was the first session we did, and then we did a couple more sessions because we got on really well, and wrote Wonder Feeling and The Atlantic together, and Metropolis. That was the next session. So we did Wonder Feeling, The Atlantic, Metropolis, all three of which I love, and just carried on writing. So every few months we'd meet up and do another couple of tracks. But for various reasons, it didn't work out with Rough Trade. So then I didn't have a label for the album to be released on, and I had various issues with finding somewhere else and management and all sorts of things. And I was on my own. I didn't really know what I was doing. So Bernard was kind of helping me through that as well. But, we ended up just with a bunch of songs, really, that didn't get released for ages and ages and ages, and sat on my laptop and sat on his laptop. They were all really well produced and finished and ready to go, but no label. So eventually I put them out myself about 4 years ago. Started my own label, borrowed some money from stepdad, and put them out. Sometimes you just got to take the plunge and do it yourself, otherwise they'd still be sat on my laptop to this day.
Yeah, I mean, we spoke to people who are there in that situation where they do have stuff, but like you say, it's just sat on the computer. But what was that process like of starting your own label then? Was it obviously a lot more hands-on?
Yeah, I mean, I can't really even call it a label, because it was just a vehicle to my own, that particular record. It's not like I've got a record label myself. It's just I had to kind of learn that sort of side of the industry, which I wasn't particularly in the know. There's loads of things that I didn't know about. So I had help though from PS, because they did all the back end. So I was working with an amazing girl called Florence. So she and I sort of put the whole thing together ourselves. It was a bit of a learning curve, quite a steep learning curve. The whole process was a steep learning curve, but I'm glad that the record's out there now and people can hear it. That's all I wanted.
Yeah. And do you feel like that's, I mean, you touched on it earlier, both of you, like maybe that's what's more difficult for bands now, is that the money is not around like it used to be. Do you think that's maybe makes it a bit tougher for new bands now?
It must do, yeah. But I think the whole industry is totally different now to how it was when the Long Blondes first started. It's unrecognisably different, and will be again because of coronavirus and changing the live side of it as well. Because I think a lot of artists came to rely on the live side in order to make a living, and now that's gone as well. So for the time being, hopefully it will come back. But I've got so many friends who are agents and promoters and crew, and they're all just sort of twiddling their thumbs at the moment, waiting to see what's going to happen, and it's just scary and heartbreaking. And all the artists, all the bands out there who aren't at that level where they're kind of financially sustainable, what are they going to do? Are they going to carry on? Are they going to get jobs again? Maybe they already have jobs, I don't know. But touring places like Europe is just going to be impossible unless you're a big band now. The money's not there. Yeah, it's a shame. I think we were lucky. We were talking about this yesterday as well, Dorian and I, how we kind of hit it at the best time, and we had the best time.
Oh yeah, 100%. I mean, it must be heartbreaking for bands that are just starting out now, because the future does look pretty bleak. I mean, obviously, hopefully, I think these things always have a way of sorting themselves out. But, and I mean, the one thing I do like is you don't really have to rely on a label anymore. You don't even have to go to a studio, which seems, even though that seems normal now to just record on your laptop. If someone had done that, 10 years ago, that would have been thrown out the window. It's like, no, you've got to go to a studio. So I think it's brought a real good DIY spirit. You can record a #1 single on a laptop. But yeah, I mean, the live side of it, I mean, who knows at this stage? I mean, obviously, I feel really heartbroken for. I've got mates who had gigs booked and stuff that obviously aren't going to happen yet, and I think we're even thinking that something might happen this year is a bit optimistic, really. So, I mean, I just I hope it gets back to normal sooner rather than later, obviously.
Okay, just going back to your solo album, I noticed on your Instagram that you designed the artwork for that, and is there like a theme through your songwriting and your creativity being about roads and travelling on motorways and stuff?
Yeah, I guess so. It's just, I suppose the album's called British Road Movies, so I guess it's a kind of longing for escape through the landscape. I think a lot of my early memories are formed driving around the country, and people don't really see the British landscape as being particularly cinematic. It's all about American road movies and the American landscape, but I really like concrete and grey skies and umbrellas and green grass and sunsets underneath motorway bridges and flyovers and stuff like that. And I see a certain romance in that, which I guess not everybody does, but I certainly do. So I suppose I wanted to write these little kind of mini dramas set in that landscape, and that's what the album aims to achieve. And I suppose that's what my artwork aims to achieve as well, sort of finding some beauty in the mundanity of the British landscape and everyday life. And these are the places that form us. This common scenery that we can all relate to.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know much about art, but it did strike me as quite David Hockney style. Is that a fair assessment?
Thank you. Yes, I'll take that. Yeah, I love Hockney. I love Hockney's work. It's very bright and colourful and graphic, my artwork. Yeah, I do like to. I suppose pop art is a common reference that people will get if they look at it. It's quite pop art inspired, poster design, Art Deco. Mid-century modern. Yeah, very.
I can definitely see a bit of Hockney in your work. I would say a bit David Hockney. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's actually I nicked a lot from. There's an Australian artist called Jeffrey Smart who I just love. And I discovered him in 2002 in the Sydney Museum of Modern Art. But he paints these enormous perspective-based paintings of concrete roads, airports. Some are in Australia and some are in Italy as well, and Madrid. And I just thought they were amazing, and I wanted to apply that to the British landscape.
Yeah, great. And people can find those on your Instagram.
Yeah, on Instagram or on my website, katejackson.co.uk.
Nice one. And Dorian, just wanted to touch on your new music as well. Is it Gold Top Baby? I was watching some of your videos today.
Yeah, Gold Top Baby. Yeah. I mean, it's just kind of got off the ground really. I've recorded an album, but obviously, as we touched on, with the way the world is at the moment, that kind of thing, I'm not really sure when it's going to be released or whether I'm going to do any live stuff with it. I've done a couple of live bits, but it's sort of in the netherworld of not quite ready to be presented to the public really yet. All the songs are there, but I need to work out how I'm going to present it to the world really. So I was hoping to have the album out this year, but obviously that may have changed now. So probably next year it will be out and in the public world.
Yeah, I was enjoying your Bob Mortimer Train Guy remix as well.
Oh,
yeah, one of the highlights of lockdown.
That was. Oh, that's amazing! I literally did that because I live like really right next to a railway bridge, and I was just bored, and I was just trying to work out on my phone how to use a video editing app. So I just filmed. I filmed because it was obviously when there was no trains and stuff. So I just filmed from the bridge, and I think like everyone else, I've just found Bob Mortimer's Train Guy one of the highlights of the year. It's just so fun. Yeah. So it was just some silly thing I was doing for me to work out how to use video editing equipment.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. Just about that. Well, about your time in the Long Blondes, is there anything you would do differently?
Yours?
I not personally, not for me. I think everything we wanted to achieve, we achieved beyond everything we wanted to achieve. So yeah, personally I wouldn't change anything. It was the best of times, and I feel really, really lucky that we got to experience everything that we did. So no, I wouldn't change anything.
I think with hindsight, we could have done with a good manager, but we never found the right person. But you can't change something like that. That's just chance. So no, of what happened, there's nothing I'd change.
Yeah, that's something Tom and I think Ryan from the Cribs was saying. It's like it's almost guesswork with getting management. Like you just have to, just have to guess and hope it works out for the best, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I think really the whole industry is guesswork.
Yes,
and we were lucky. We were lucky to have guessed right more times than we guessed wrong. So I'll take that.
Okay, cool. And one new question I've added is there a song or album that makes you most nostalgic about that period? It can be one of your own if you want.
I think if I heard that, I haven't listened to it for ages. 1990s, the band, and the song "You Made Me Like It," because we listened to that over and over again when we were driving around, and we toured with them endlessly as well when we'd signed to Rough Trade. So I bet if I listen to that record, it's just going to take me right back there.
Mine is the whole album of the New Fellas by the Cribs, like without any doubt, because it was kind of about. It seems to be about the scene in Leeds, which is where I kind of met them guys and hung out with them. And obviously, there's this song. It's called "I'm All Right Me." He's got the line in it, which is "Take drugs, don't eat, have content with those you meet," which to me is like that sums up a philosophy of that time. I mean, those times were just so hedonistic. People went out every night and survived on very little food and very little sleep and a lot of alcohol and a lot of drugs. So, yeah, that reminds me of a certain time in my life, definitely.
We usually try and finish on a funny story about the Gallaghers, but if you've got one, or just because I think you find that if they were knocking around at the time, especially Liam, trying to take bands down a peg or two at that time. I can remember one year at the NME Awards, we were sat. The only other person sat on our table, bizarrely, was Damon Albarn. Wow!
And I can remember clearly to this day, like Oasis was sat on the other side of the room, and when Damon came in, Liam stood up from his table and started giving him V's from the other side of the room, and it was just like, and like I remember me and Screech just like going, "Oh my God, we're in the middle of the Britpop Wars 10 years on." It's like it was pretty bizarre, yeah.
It was really funny because Damon sat down with us. He clearly did not want to be sat at a table with us, that was a massive insult to him. So he shook hands with everyone, went around going, I'm Damon, I'm Damon, I'm Damon, I'm Damon, and then turned his chair so that his back was facing us and did not speak to us again. And Emma went really loudly, I used to love Blur Me. It's so funny.
So how does that work then? Is it just random allocation of seats? Or?
Yeah, just random allocation of table. I think he was expecting some special treatment, which he didn't get because he was sat with us.
Yeah.
But then bizarrely, we saw him about a week later. We were doing some photo shoot in Notting Hill for something or other, and I guess he lives around there. And we were stood on the street just doing a photo shoot. And I don't know if you remember, Kate, he just suddenly appeared out of nowhere driving like sort of, like a fixie bike. Kind of drove past and just gave us a wave. Like it's like, but we were on good terms after that, I think.
Yeah, I suppose they were a massive deal at the time, weren't they? Like the NME Awards and stuff. Was that quite a good event to go to, or a strange event?
It was
Strange.
It was hilarious. But I think we took stuff like that in our stride. It's like, it's a load of, once you get down to it, it's a load of idiots in a room with free booze. It's like, what's going to happen here?
Yeah.
I remember
jumping on the table.
Well, exactly that. Yeah, exactly. That's basically. So yeah, that was. In fact, was that? No, that was the year before we were start with Damon. But no, I remember just being there. I mean, we were more interested in. I remember me and Screech we couldn't believe, because there's all the kind of music stars, but me and Screech were like, oh my God, that's Teddy Sheringham, who's like one of our favourite footballers. And we're just like, God, this is what, like. So we were trying to like corner like Teddy Sheringham, and he wasn't having any. And then I think Screech went to go and talk to the cast of Harry Potter who were there as well. Like, it's just one of them stupid events where it's more the musicians are one thing, but the other kind of people who get invited kind of makes it a lot funnier.
Yeah, Teddy Sheringham was very random.
It honestly was. Me and Screech just like, he just tapped me, goes, look over there. I was like, oh my God, Teddy Sheringham.
Excellent. All right, well, I really appreciate that, given a lot of your time. So, yeah, thanks a lot.
I just want to say the most underrated band at the time is Neil's Children. I just want to put in that.
You say that again, Dorian, sorry.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that it was noted that the most underrated band of the time was Neil's Children.
Yeah. So I remember that one song they had.
I Hate Models.
Might have been. It was one of the songs was my MySpace song for a bit. I can't remember what it was now. But it was a banger, definitely, yeah.
Yeah, they were amazing. I just wanted to make sure that was put in there.
Amazing,
okay, cool.
and lovely as well. So lovely. Lovely boys.
Yeah.